Trina Booz is our keynote speaker for today. She is the founder, CEO of Boost Academy of Excellence. Trina, please come on stage.
I almost didn't talk about this topic today. When I was asked to come and talk to you about networking, I was going to play it safe, give you the frameworks, the tips, the small talk formulas that work in any room. But when you get through all that, they know what you do, you know what they do, a question often comes up. Where are you from? Notice what just happened. Some of you smiled, some of you tensed just slightly. And that gap right there is what I want to talk about today. Where are you from? 4 words, endlessly complicated, and yet packed into those 4 words is a wealth of potential human connection that how was your weekend will never come close to. I know this because of my father and because of who I am. I was born in Trinidad, an immigrant like many of you, and I came to Canada when I was 9. My background is about as mixed as you can get. Trinidadian born with Italian, French, German, Portuguese, Spanish, Irish roots woven through my family history, which is why I've always been so deeply interested in where people come from. Because in understanding others, it helps me to better understand myself. Now, growing up Trinidadian, I was raised in a culture where strangers didn't really exist. We would talk to literally everybody. We'd be at the grocery store talking to the person in the line beside us, and by the time we reached the cashier, we would know their mother's name, their dog's name, and we'd have invited them for drinks on Friday night. My late father embodied that island friendliness completely. He was a geologist, and he worked as a general manager in the oil industry, and his job took him around the world. And he had this almost supernatural ability to just walk into a room full of strangers and walk out everybody's best friend. He made you feel like your story was the most interesting thing he had ever heard, because to him, it genuinely was. He even took that interest a step further, and he learned the origin of people's names. And suddenly, you would find yourself sharing stories about your family history you had never been asked about before. Now, I'm not telling you that you need to know the history of people's names. That was my father's particular tool. But the genuine interest, that is available to all of us. A colleague of mine, Serbian, born in Croatia, a region complicated by recent conflict and painful history, tells me, where are you from? It's almost impossible to answer because her history is too complicated for a quick answer. But when somebody asks her about the meaning of her name, she lights up. Because that feels like genuine noticing. Not a net cast wide, but a hand extended. And she gets to decide how much to share. And she'll often share a lot. Now, that is the whole point. It's not about how much you know. It's about how genuinely you want to know them. Watching my father is what inspired the work I do today, training professionals in business social skills, the art of conversation, workplace etiquette, and what I like to call human connection at work. It's at the heart of everything I teach. Etiquette is not about you. It's about the people around you. The most powerful thing that you can do in any conversation with another human being is to make them feel genuinely interesting, to give them the rarest gift in professional life, the feeling of being truly seen. And I was reminded of this recently in a very personal way. When my family came to Canada, we settled in Alberta. My mother, a very warm, deeply caring person, was just longing for people to ask about our culture, our traditions, our foods. But those moments were rarer than she expected. And she still remembers every person who asked, every single one. And that is what we risk losing when we think this question is too complicated to ask. Not just a conversation, but an entire world someone was hoping to share. Where are you from? The question is neither polite nor impolite. What determines its appropriateness is entirely situational. And I say that having asked this question many times and having been surprised with results on both sides. I was at a business conference having a conversation with a lady, genuinely connecting over lunch. And I noticed she had an English first name, a Portuguese last name, and an Indian accent. I knew Goa had been a Portuguese colony, so I asked her, I said, "Are you going by any chance?" And she grinned ear to ear. Yes, she was. And for the next 20 minutes, I heard stories about her culture, things I would have never thought to ask. But I've also seen it go really wrong. I once asked a man with a Caribbean accent where he was from, and his body language changed immediately. He got guarded, closed off. I said, "I'm only asking because I'm from Trinidad and I have a feeling you might be too." And his whole demeanor changed. You're from Trinidad? Which part you're from? And suddenly we were two Trinis that had found each other far from home. The discomfort was real. And it taught me something important, that context is everything. And without it, even the most well-intentioned question can feel like a challenge rather than an invitation. And the mistake a lot of us make is thinking we either ask this question or we don't. Full stop. But this question is not really about geography. It's about identity and belonging and history. And those deserve to be treated with care. So look around this room. We have people here who are carrying histories the world has torn apart, quietly, invisibly, every single day. And that is the weight this question can carry. Which is why how you ask is as important as whether you ask at all. I have developed a framework, and I call it the GRACE framework. GRACE because this is what we need to have a conversation like today. And in it, it'll help us to determine how we ask, when we ask, and how we can accept this question gracefully. G, genuine curiosity. Are you asking because you're curious about this person and their world? Or are you asking to place or categorize them? Because if the interest is genuine, then pursue it thoughtfully. But if it's anything else, let it go. R, read the room. A networking event like today is very different to a first-time meeting with a new client or a conversation with a new direct report. The same question lands differently depending on where you are, what room you're in, who you're talking to, and what relationship currently exists. A, ask at the right time. Earn the right to ask and build enough of a connection with the other person. Let the origin story come naturally. You could talk about their holiday plans, their name, and you'd be surprised how much people share when they only feel welcomed. C, come with humility. You don't have to have gone to their country. You don't need to know their country's history. What you need is the willingness to say, I don't know much about that part of the world. That honesty opens more doors than any amount of cultural knowledge. E, engage with the answer. If you're going to ask this question, then listen. And ask open-ended questions. Questions that say, hey, I'm really interested in what you're saying. I've seen people answer with, oh, Germany, cool. And I've watched the other person deflate. Compare that to, oh, Germany, what was it like growing up there? The follow-up is everything. And whatever you do, Don't say, but where are you really from? Because that tells the other person you've already decided what the correct answer should be. And that closes a door that someone might have just found the courage to walk through. And finally, if you're on the receiving end of this question, know you have options. You can deflect and say, curious, what makes you ask? Or you could approach it lightly and say, oh, I like to keep a little mystery around that one. Because your story is yours and you can share it if you want. Grace. 5 letters, all you need. My father's genuine interest was his superpower. He made people feel seen. Now, not everyone finds reaching out easy. Like any muscle, the more you use it, the stronger you get. Today is your chance. Find someone you don't know. Notice something about them. Ask one genuine question, and then give them your full attention. You are in a room today, in person and online, with nearly 1,000 people whose stories collectively span the globe. Maybe you might be curious enough for someone to ask about yours. Now, go make someone else feel seen. It makes all the difference. Thank you.